The last 2 minutes were so baffling, so insanely childish and terrible and just like so bad 12-year-old me would have cringed. And he lived off cringe. He lived off trash and cringe. I watched all the way through Smallville, the entire series, like 3 times at that age. Like I was ready to sit and watch not really good TV. This though, just, oh boy. You know what? I take all of that back. Smallville's fantastic. I love it. Would I sit down and watch an episode right now? Yes, but I'm not sure if it's ironic. What am I doing? I love Smallville. Why am I trying to throw Smallville under the bus? It's just absolutely not fair to even mention Smallville along with Rings of Power. Rings of Power, at its best, is the worst episode of Smallville. I'm probably going to watch some Smallville tonight. I know some of you think I might be kidding about Smallville, but I just want to assure you, I am not. Look at that. That 10-season box set. Oh yeah, baby. I couldn't find all the DVDs. This is just how I found it in my spare room. But rest assured, the rest of the seasons, if I want to watch them tonight, they're somewhere in that room. Unfortunately, that room is a mess. You could say it's a metaphor for my life. More like my dating life, am I right? We get the anti-Game of Thrones version of The King in the North! The King in the North! Where all the Southland evil orcs and that one random old man that didn't get developed enough to be the one who started the origin story of the Mount Doom magical key. I don't know why you wouldn't develop him further. He's going to be the guy holding the magical key sword to make Mount Doom erupt. Like, just develop him, like, slightly at least, please. But we're beyond that, we're past that. I'll just get over that. I won't get over it, but let's just get over it. And he's all like, the King in the North! I mean, the King in the Southlands! The evil King in the Southlands! And they're doing a whole thing, and the orcs are doing it, and then he's like, oh, I don't think so. The Southlands, they don't exist anymore. And then an evil old man whose name will escape me until I die, he's like, what shall we call it, great father Adar, king of the orcs? What shall we call the Southlands? And it's like, ... And I'm like, oh my god, he's going to say, Mordor. And I'm going to be like, sometimes cringe is like funny and you can like enjoy it. You're like, oh, it's so cringe. You know, like watching cringe compilations on YouTube. I don't particularly love doing that in my spare time, but I have one mate that does, and I can partake every now and then. But I'm not a big cringe guy, but I can appreciate that kind of cringe where it's like so, it's funny. But this was so like, I could feel like the inside of my body trying to escape like my skin and like get out. Like I was like, incomprehensible disgust, anger, and delight at, you know, once again, like the Mount Doom origin story, just like, how did this... So many people had to look at the script before you spent $1 billion making the show, like, just... What? But then, something miraculous and amazing happened. He did not say Mordor. He did not say Mordor. He didn't go Mordor. And I was like, shocked and overwhelmed with like, how much restraint the show had. I'm like, this might be the most restraint the prequel series Rings of Power have had so far. It is the most prequel thing to be like, oh, this place that we've followed all season. In fact, it's the evil place from the thing you remember and love, Mordor. But they didn't do it. They didn't say it. And then we pan up and we get a beautiful shot. There's fire and debris and the aftermath of everything with Mount Doom in the far distance. And it's like, ooh, that's a great way to end the episode. That's beautiful. You didn't say it because we all know it's Mordor. Anyone watching this show that doesn't understand that it's Mordor, they don't exist. They just don't exist. And then just as the beautiful shot is about to fade to black and we're going to get a beautiful, you know, credits song, and I'm going to go, oh, was that not the worst episode? Was that maybe the best episode? Bar is very low. Bar is very low for like best episode, but maybe it was. And I just think, you know, expectations once again, just very, very low. But I was like pleasantly surprised. And then in the corner on the top left, it's like the Southlands. And I'm like, but you just said... Oh no, please don't do what I think you're going to do. And then the Southlands, it starts to disappear. And then, you know, fire crackling appears and the word Mordor appears. And it could be the single worst thing I've ever seen in something that is trying to be serious. It is a horrendous, childish, 7-year-old's version of what is cool and awesome. 12-year-old me, as I said, is cringing at this, and he loved everything. He loved Smallville. He loved a second and then third example of something cringe. And I made some pretty cringy videos back then, and they were mostly Lord of the Rings, like, inspired. Like, we all had our sticks and swords hitting each other in the back forest, you know, had capes on that were green, and we were like, we're rangers and elves and shit, and hitting each other in the long grass in my backyard, and all that kind of fun stuff. And there was plenty of cringe to go about. Like, it's just, it would stress me to rewatch those. But nothing so stupid and so dumb as to replace the cringy don't need to say it because we understand dialogue with a title card. I'm never going to get over how stupid this show can be. And every single time it like impresses or like amazes me that it's not terrible, it then does something even worse and incomprehensible. It's just I'm going to have to take a breather. Just give me 5. I'll cut the time I'm breathing, but just give me 5. So, Rings of Power. Welcome back, everyone. I mean, well, you didn't go anywhere, but I was gone for 5 to 7 minutes. What was I doing? I'll never say. So this week, young sexy Gandalf, or maybe he's Sauron, he does a little bit of a magic trick on a tree and he tries to make the tree grow apples and stuff, but it doesn't. Oh no, the tree falls! And they're all like, get out of here, young sexy Gandalf / maybe young sexy Sauron, get out of here! And he gets out of there. But then, oh no, next day, oh, surprise, shock, oh, amazing. The trees, they blossomed lots of apples. And they are so happy to see all these apples. And all I kept thinking was, it might just show like kind of my mentality and that I'm an ungrateful, awful human being. But I just kept thinking, man, if you like saw an orchard and it was all like magical grown apples out of nowhere, I just would have been like, haha, he couldn't have done a spell to give us some oranges, some pears, some peaches, oh, some strawberries, any type of berry. Apples are just kind of my least favorite apple. Like at work, we have like a staff room, tea room kind of thing. And every morning they bring us fruit and it's mandarins, bananas, apples. Guess how many times in the many years I've worked there, I've ever grabbed an apple? Yeah, that's right. It's 0. It's 0. You knew the answer. I was being very condescending with my tone towards apples. You knew it was 0. The answer's 0. How long do you think I've had this apple in my house? The answer would surprise and horrify you. And it would also horrify you that the apple looks this good when it's been a number of days. I actually don't know the amount of days. I was trying to remember the last time I got HelloFresh. Because I got HelloFresh from someone at work. They gave me a free little voucher and I forgot to cancel it. I don't... HelloFresh, it's not for me. I understand why people like it. Why am I talking about HelloFresh? I remember I had this apple and I was like, recently I was like trying to like fit something that I bought in like the fridge, but I had all this like HelloFresh stuff where it was like a radish and like potatoes I don't want to use and just like a sweet potato, not a normal potato. I love a normal potato. A sweet potato, just not for me. Why am I talking about food? I've got a lot of Rings of Power things to get through, but you know what? I do want to explain the apple. I just remember seeing the apple and I'm going through the ingredients, kind of making my own thing because I kind of like cooking and experimenting and cooking, but I'm going like half of what they've given me and kind of combining 2 HelloFresh meals at one, and then I saw that was an apple. I'm like, what am I going to do with an apple? I'm definitely not going to eat the apple. That's just insane. I feel like now maybe my hatred of apples has come across as mean-spirited, unfair and uncool. It's just a personal thing. I used to love an apple crumble. My mum made a very good apple crumble back in the day. But you know what? I've not eaten an apple for a very long time. I don't even know what it would taste like anymore. One of the scenes this episode that I really enjoyed was the 3 white-cloaked, potentially Sauron apprentice acolyte kind of spooky, evil, black-fingered characters, and they're all like, and they're all just doing spooky, evil stuff, and I like their whole vibe. They're very odd and mysterious. I like that they don't talk. I don't really There's still got a bit of that apple. It's just, it has an off taste. And I love that Lady Frodo was like, he actually went that way. And they're like, you stupid little half-foot. Like, I don't believe you at all. And they stand over her. They do a creepy, creepy hand shot coming into her, back of her head to grab a thingy out, presumably to, smell it or whatever to see where young sexy Gandalf, but they think it's young sexy Sauron, is. And then the other half-foots are like, get out of here, we've got fire, we're little people, but we'll hurt you. And she just touches the fire and then blows up all their stuff. And it's meant to be a sad, oh no, all their stuff exploded. But I don't know, they're traveling gypsies. Can't they just find some wood and build new houses? I don't want to be rude, but their house is not that impressive. I didn't feel like anything there wasn't something you could just rebuild. It didn't really appear like anyone died or was lit on fire. There was one point where one of them was screaming. I'm like, oh my god, that main Hobbit man thing, the guy who's like, I'm the main one or whatever. I thought he was dead. But then we get a shot right at the end where he's crying too, and I'm like, it's just stuff that died. you're traveling gypsies. You don't have homes that are stuck in one location. Like a home where you're stuck and you live there, like that burning down is like more significant than if you're a traveling gypsy hobbit. Like you can just rebuild and get some new wheels or whatever, right? And I'm not trying to be insensitive. I just feels like their whole lifestyle, like losing that stuff, it's not that detrimental. But also maybe I am just heartless because I hate the Hobbits and I'm so angry that the Hobbits are by far the worst part of this show, at least for me. Ironically, it's the most traveling, characters in this show. I feel like every time we get to them, the show like grinds to a sudden stop, halt moment of just like, ugh. And then I'm just stuck there being like, just reveal, is it young sexy Gandalf or young sexy Sauron? I'm sick of this at this point. I just wanted a reveal. So presumably we're going to get the Sauron reveal next week and we'll find out, is it Halbrand or is it young sexy Gandalf / young sexy Sauron? And if Halbrand isn't young sexy Sauron, I guess he'll be the Witch King or he'll be that zombie coward king from Return of the King, or a third example of another thing I'm not aware of because I'm not that good at Tolkien lore. And so we end the Hobbits on their own little Fellowship of the Hobbits moment where Lady Frodo's like, I'm going off to adventure alone to find Gandalf / maybe Sauron, whatever, sexy young, you get my joke. And then Lady Sam is like, not without me, you're not. And I'm like, that feels like it's almost the exact same dialogue Sam says in the Fellowship of the Ring when he goes, fine, okay, a reference or something. And then the mother and father are like, oh no, daughter, you can have my fatherhood. And then the mother's like, and my motherhood. And then the main leader of the Hobbit people, and he's like, and me, because my wife made me. Also, the worst moment of the episode, no, apart from the Mordor Southlands thing, which is clearly the worst thing probably in the whole show. I mean, also the Mount Doom eruption. There's lots of bad things that have happened, but something that made me just so baffled and just annoyed. I'm like, who wrote this? Did anyone look back at the script? I mean, you also filmed it. You couldn't have gone like, this doesn't make any sense. So Hobbit leader character, his wife is like, I was wrong. Young sexy Gandalf / young Sauron, the Bigfoot boy, he's actually awesome. He gave us lots of apples. I mean, no berries, no peaches, no pears. I mean, none of the delicious fruit. He gave us boring old apples, but he gave us apples, and we're very desperate. I mean, maybe it just shows how privileged I am that I can snuff at an apple when I get just delicious bananas and berries all day. You know what? Now just saying that, I do feel like very privileged, and maybe I should humble myself with some humble pie. Guess what's going to be in that pie? Not apple. And so she admits that she is wrong. Sometimes she's wrong, and this time she was very wrong. And then immediately, the next line of dialogue is leader man of the Hobbits. He's like, oh, wife of mine, I wish just for once, you weren't always correct. What? What do you mean? What do you mean by that? She literally just confessed that she was wrong, and now your next line of dialogue is, I wish just for once you were wrong. Were you being ironic? It didn't feel like you were being ironic. It's just bad dialogue! So Elrond and Durin's friendship and bromance, it just continues to be easily the best part of the series. Part of me, when they're like smashing the rock and they've got like, soot and rock dust all over them and they're sitting there having a little D&M, I'm like, just imagine how good this show would be if Elrond just like looks at him and then Durin just like looks at him and then he just kind of like rips off his shirt and then we just get like a dirty, hard-ass sex scene and it's just filthy and awful and you're just like, it's just passionate but also kind of grotty and awful. But that is mostly what I thought, and I feel like some of the mithril stuff feels weird. I feel like maybe they mentioned it last episode or, whenever they were last in it, but the mithril right next to the evil leaf, the corrupted leaf, and it heals the corruption out of the leaf. It just feels like a really like, oh, I didn't realize that mithril was like super good guy magic and it would destroy evil corruption magic. I thought it was like a strong material that was just like so magical in its material like essence. Like, you could wear it as armor and make it a good sword. But I didn't think you would just put it next to evil. Like, it kind of implies that like if you got Sauron like on a chair, you could like put like a bag of mithril, like a sack over his head. But the sack was made of mithril and it would just like suck the evil right out of him. It's weird. The whole plot is actually kind of weird, and I'm surprised how good Elrond and Durin are to make me not hate their scenes, because they're easily my favorite scenes, and I realize how much better this episode was than last week just because they're in it again. But the whole storyline is kind of bad or weird, or maybe I just don't get mithril, and maybe it's just because I thought it was a really cool, sexy, stab-stopping shirt that Frodo had. Also, we get another horrendously just prequel moment where the leaf, the not corrupt leaf is like falling, and it keeps falling, and I'm like, oh, okay. This is like when the bird is flying into the Lonely Mountain at the end of the first Hobbit movie, and then we see the dragon's eye, and the dragon eyes opens, but it's kind of exciting and amazing. But this just felt like, yeah, we all know what's under there. The Balrog, they dug too deep and, greed and blah, blah, blah. And the Balrog, like, we've all seen Fellowship of the Ring. And so to see it, like, happen, it just felt like, it's like, I don't know. I feel like when you hear, like, they dug too deep and they awoke this ancient evil demon, your mind can just summon and conjure so many ideas of how crazy and beautiful and horrific that is. And to see a leaf fall down and land, like, in front of where the Balrog is just, like, asleep on the ground, and he just wakes up when he sees a leaf and just goes, I'm Balrog! Blah, 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 blah. Also, did the Balrog seem kind of overly CGI, where I'm like, why did it look better 20 years ago? What's up? What? Another thing that I really did enjoy was the fact that Queen Numenorean lady, she was blind, and like just having that kind of slow reveal where you could probably have told before that moment, but her just being like, when will this mist end? And they're like, what? It ended a while ago. What are you? Oh my god. And that kind of clunky dialogue that kind of works, it's cheesy, but in that good way, where she's like, oh, I see. And he's like, do you? Now I'm saying it. That's bad. But I like that scene. I guess I just like the fact that there were consequences to the big explosion eruption, because it seemed that only that one random Isildur friend died. Isildur does have a building fall on him, but the fact of like fake killing Isildur just feels like, why are we doing this? That feels frustrating and unnecessary and just pointless. Like, what's the point? I guess the point is because he's not going to go home with like his dad and everybody else. But I would have liked if you'd built up the character where he could have made that character choice to be like, I'm staying with Galadriel and Halbrand, who's definitely not Sauron. Also, Halbrand, who's definitely not Sauron, he didn't have a line of dialogue this week that explicitly stated that he is absolutely definitely Sauron. Definitely not Sauron. So that was awful. I wanted to have another line of dialogue where I'm like, it's getting a bit heavy-handed, to the point where I'm like, is it too heavy-handed? Maybe it's so heavy-handed that sexy young Gandalf is actually sexy young Sauron, and Halbrand will be Witch King of Agnar, or just, I don't know, another guy, the zombie king guy, or whatever, or like just one of the kings. Or maybe he'll just be a good guy. He'll just be like, it's like Aragorn's story. Oh, he's just Aragorn. He's just the good guy. Okay.